I know that you saw the title for this video, and I know what you may be thinking. And you're right. I do wish that Clive could have been thicker than a bowl of cold oatmeal. Oh well, at least we got our boy Byron. Really though, don't take the title of this video as a declaration of my disdain for Final Fantasy XVI or anything. It's easily my game of the year and arguably my favorite Final Fantasy game. But of course there are things that could have been done better. In this case, 5 of them. 5. Make exploration feel worth it. Being encouraged to explore my surroundings in a game is one of my favorite ways to waste time. I couldn't care less if the game is open world or not, and as long as I get a decent sized area to roam around in and beat things up for loot, I am quite satisfied. Valisthea offers exactly what I just mentioned, so when I can see this little glowing speck off in the distance, something in me just clicks, and then it's hook, line, and sinker. However, the problem is that none of it is worth it. I just hauled ass across an entire countryside to pick up 2 gil. Yes, I said 2 gil. Sometimes we might get lucky and find a whopping 10 gil. Come on now. It's not like the folks at Square are incapable of making exploration worth it. Take this one late game area for example. It's barren, there's nothing here, and then somehow you spot a narrow gap on a rock face that Clive can pass through. Through here is a little chest that contains one of the coolest swords in the game, that being the Masamune. I honestly cannot recall any other time in the game where my exploration felt rewarded like this. 4. Elemental weaknesses for enemies. Let me tell you something. Defeating bombs, one of the most recognizable enemies in all of Final Fantasy, with fire-based attacks felt like I was engaging in the most blasphemous act imaginable. Yes, I'm gonna be extra like that and compare defeating a bomb with fire to using a Bible page as a joint or something. I understand that some people may believe that needing to switch from the Phoenix icon to Shiva's in order to attack a bomb with their weakness is limiting the gameplay, but I wholeheartedly disagree. If anything, it opens things up for significantly more experimentation. While it wouldn't even be required to attack an enemy with their weakness, there would be more strategy involved in combat overall. Trying to figure out which enemies are weak to what specific element or ability is all part of the fun in playing an RPG. Plus, it would give people who would rather focus on using magic a bit more variety in their gameplay.
Shadow Wizard Buddy Gang, we love casting spells.
3. Optional dungeons. Back on the subject of exploration. Think of that one time you were playing Elden Ring and you noticed a door or a cave off in the distance. You felt that neuron activation kick in, and then it's off to the races. And what do you know, you found yourself one of many optional dungeons to complete and explore to your heart's content. Now, I'm not saying that Final Fantasy XVI needs this exact same thing, but I mean, optional dungeons have always been a part of the series' history. Sure, 16 has these big rocks you can find that give you access to one of several chronolith challenges, where you get to defeat waves of enemies with only one specific icon, but that isn't a dungeon. Sure, they're fun, but wouldn't it be awesome to stumble across this fallen ruin and find a door that leads into this dark and moody dungeon with its own little mini subplot within? You can easily take a note from Bethesda's book and leave little journal entries scattered throughout the dungeon that detail some poor explorer's descent into madness, and have the explorer be found at the end either dead at the hands of some unique monster or turned into some unique monster himself. And speaking of unique monsters, 2. Legacy monsters. I cannot describe the disappointment I felt when I journeyed through a desert, made it to a cool-ass little oasis town, then found a reference to cactars, and never, not even once, saw one of the little green bastards. You mean to tell me that we got a whole-ass desert area and all these monster hunt missions, and never get to fight a cactar? And perhaps the biggest offender on the absent monster list, the Tonberry. Without going into spoiler territory, anyone who has finished this game knows that there are so many areas that are very dark, depressing, and mysterious. Meaning that they are perfect places to find our adorable, creepy little murderous friends. And last but not least, number 1. no God of War sex minigame to fit the Game of Thrones aesthetic. I'm kidding, it's super bosses. Though it is a cool boss fight, the max level dragon that is part of a bounty board mission is not a super boss. Super bosses in these types of games are typically presented in a more subtle way. They can be found at the end of an optional dungeon, at the end of some side quests, or just a literal secret that you come across out of nowhere in some random place. Final Fantasy XVI currently does not have any sort of enemies that fit that description, which is a real shame. This game has arguably the best gameplay in the entire series, and there isn't anything to fight that is worthy of testing your acquired skill? No epic sword fight with Gilgamesh? No large-scale fight with something like Omega? That's pretty disappointing. Don't get me wrong, the bounty board hunts are fine, especially the ones that pop up during the later parts of the game. Honestly, these are the only genuine complaints that I have with Final Fantasy XVI. The game itself is fantastic, and if you haven't played or finished it yet, don't let this video stop you from missing out on what is currently my favorite PlayStation exclusive. The issues that I described can honestly and realistically be fixed or added in if Square Enix plans to support the game long term with either DLC or free updates. With how well the game's been doing commercially, and with how fans are already asking for DLC, I can remain hopeful for the things that I listed becoming a reality. Super bosses, legacy monsters, worthwhile exploration, and optional dungeons can just be seamlessly added into the game. And since people have been oddly making a fuss about the game not being difficult enough, perhaps a new difficulty option can be added that takes elemental weakness and resistance into account and breathe even more life into the gameplay. Or if anything, it can just become part of the Final Fantasy difficulty as an optional stipulation that you can choose to be active or not. If you're still here after all of that, thank you so very much for watching. If you're feeling up for it, feel free to use the comment section to let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points, or if you have some minor gripes of your own that you'd like to elaborate on. And if you'd like to support the channel in any way, you can like this video and subscribe for more content like this for the small price of $0 and about 3 seconds of your time. Thank you again for watching, and you all take care.